Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Al-Halwani. I'm currently an assistant professor at the French institution, Université de l'Ontario Français in Toronto, Canada. And today I'll be presenting this work on behalf of my colleagues, Sophia Marlowe and Jennifer Adams, who are at the University of Calgary in Canada. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to present to the EduBridge community and to learn alongside one another. My presentation, entitled Towards Unsettling Practices in STEM Education, reflects many influences during my PhD studies and my postdoc, and how they shaped my understanding of different ways that we could approach STEM education, specifically for more caring and careful ways of being in a world that's becoming more and more socially and environmentally fragile. So again, Sophia and Dr. Jennifer Adams, who was my postdoc supervisor, they provided, if you will, the incubator that supported the development also of a tool that I will be presenting to you today. First, I would like to share with you my angles of arrival that informed the development of the tool. I will then present that tool and present some examples showing the ways we have been using this tool in a pre-service STEM teacher course. So it's like a teacher training course for STEM teachers. And then end with some considerations and plans for future research. So as a first angle of arrival, I start with this image that accompanied my early thinking about STEM education, joining the research team of Dr. Larry Benz, who was my supervisor, my PhD supervisor at the University of Toronto. This vision of STEM could be read as both an exaggeration, maybe, but also somehow speaks truth to how STEM education has been participating in this global economic machine that produces STEM professionals, engineers, and scientists, sometimes to the detriment of societies and environments. Following from that image and my involvement with the Stepwise team, which you could check out by clicking on this link, we have been drawing students' attention to how STEM products often work as a Trojan horse. Very nice and shiny on the outside, just like our smartphones, for example, as science and technology products, yet hiding inside of them potential harms. So inside the phones, we could find, for instance, mercury and other hazardous substances with serious health and environmental risks. As a result of my involvement with Stepwise and my orientation for teaching science has been much influenced by this present quote that you can see here on the slide, whereas Weinstein said we need to be less concerned with how students learn an exotic worldview called science and instead concern ourselves with questions of how students become enculturated in modern technoscience-centered societies. For instance, students can more critically reflect on everyday science and technology products, like some of the images that are presented here, and discuss the ethical, social, and environmental implications of those products. In my teaching, I also like to expand on the place of science and technology in relation to household, everyday, and cultural objects, and show non-Western communities' contributions to science and related fields, such as agriculture and engineering. A second angle of arrival for me into this presentation has been concerned with representations of nature of science. For instance, I invite my students to look at how STEM fields are often portrayed in media when they show a specific type of a character related to a scientist who's often, quote unquote, the genius, which is a young, obsessive, and sometimes socially awkward, often male, which can make the field seem intimidating and exclusive. This portrayal suggests that not only those with innate abilities or relentless dedication, only those are suitable for success in STEM, which can discourage many from considering it accessible or welcoming. Of course, not to say that this is always the norm. Things have been changing, even in media, with more representations in STEM by showing more women, people of color, and diverse backgrounds in key science roles. However, research has also shown that simply increasing representation does not address the deeper structural and cultural barriers within STEM, and that the scope of trying to understand equity beyond inclusion. And this can be done by supporting students to re-author what meaningful contribution and participation in STEM disciplines look like, by making concrete the intersection between students' lives, disciplinary learning, and justice and injustice, and by disrupting normative knowledge power relationalities in classrooms that can be often grounded in white patriarchal dominance, among others. Other scholars have also addressed the notion that we need to expand definitions of what counts as science and whose science counts. A third point of arrival for me into this presentation has been much influenced by my involvement with the Creativity and Equity in STEM Lab under the supervision of Dr. Jennifer Adams. And this has really helped me to think about the importance of creativity as a social endeavor and the importance of fostering contexts that allow creativity instead of labeling individuals as creative or not, delegating their creativity to an individual characteristic. So really the importance here of pedagogy and teaching and strategies that we could put in place to support students' creativity. So here to summarize my angles of arrivals, again, which have been much informed by my past experiences through my studies. So my own personal orientation, finding myself always struggling in finding myself also as an educator in normative conceptions of STEM. And this could be also related to my own identity as a person, immigrant, experiencing the world from an in-between place with multiple languages and cultures, but also growing to see the value of teaching science in context and for its role in the well-being of individuals, societies, and environments. So that's also why I've been moving towards looking at concepts of affect and care and to try to study science through those concepts and lenses. And this is all, again, to reassert the importance and the value of, was able to have the support of Dr. Jennifer Adams and Sophia to support me in creating the tool that I will be presenting next. So here's a snapshot of that tool that I was able to co-develop with Sophia while I was working with the Creativity and Equity in STEM Lab. And this was developed again in the context of a course I was teaching for pre-service STEM teachers, trying to find creative ways, different ways of helping them plan STEM lessons, science lessons, by providing them with prompting questions like the ones you are seeing on the screen here that are meant as invitations to try to unsettle STEM practices by bringing more attention to the social, the environmental, the bodily, the aesthetics, and the curiosity and wonder in science. So if we take a closer look here at this tool, you could see, for instance, question 1 begins by inviting teachers to take an existing STEM lesson, teaching lesson that they might, teach in their context, and ask them what are the assumptions that exist about this activity in terms of what types of knowledge and beings count and don't count. After having this kind of first reflection, a follow-up question, the teachers could look at question 8, for instance, that asks, in what ways can this concept or activity help express in creative ways students' emotion and identity? So here we move from a different way of addressing or adapting an existing activity by supporting teachers to try to bring in more creativity, but also to think about how do I center and make evident students and emotions and identities through this activity. Question 2, also as an example, asks, how can I be more reflexive of my implicit biases and potential blind spots in relation to the choice of the activity and to who my students are? So here again, it's that more reflexive question that can support teachers to look at the assumptions and sometimes even our own blind spots as educators. We all have them. We all, we're all, sometimes it's difficult, to constantly think about them, but this question helps teachers to become more aware of them. And then a follow-up questions could be, can I make connections with this activity to real-world issues, social and environmental, to develop students' critical thinking and their agency as humans and citizens? So here, really, we move to the idea of adapting the activity. So this is just a simple, closer look at the tool, but you're welcome to look at it in the previous slide more closely and to get a better grasp of all the different questions that we have developed, which is really here the invitation is, as the title of the presentation is, to creatively unsettle normative understandings and engagement in STEM. So I'll move here to talk about how we have been using this tool with the STEM elementary teacher candidates. So here's an exercise that is called the flashlight constellation exercise, which we have pulled from a free online teaching database. It's an exercise, an activity that you're bound to find in your own while you're researching for activities that you want to do in relation to space. So we felt that this is a good example of a tool that teachers might encounter and use in their science classrooms. As you can see, it includes a selection of condensed Greek myth related to the stars and constellations so that students can make their own holes in a cardboard to represent the different constellations and then project them using a flashlight on the wall. So we provided this activity to our students, to our STEM pre-service teachers, and we asked them to look at it and use the tool to try to a bit unsettle it and think about those questions in relation to that constellation activity. So this was the very first day when we introduced the tool to our pre-service teachers. And so we decided to have them focus on those 3 questions to start to build this critical thinking and reflexivity about the activity itself. And as a result of those questions, those were some of the reflections that teachers kind of addressed or talked about. They talked about how the activity does not look at how there are different constellations that are in different hemispheres. And so this idea of the dominance of Western science, but also that it does not necessarily represent other Eastern knowledge systems. The activity itself assumes that all students can have access to a flashlight. and that it doesn't take into account how in different parts of the world that there are environmental issues that affect our abilities to see the sky and recognize the constellations, and also that it might be inserted in this more ableist assumption that everyone can see. So to keep us moving, to see the other applications also of this tool, I'm gonna take us now to a different example where we told students to again think about a different activity related to STEM. This time it was called the Adapt a Wall Marble Run activity. So it's that activity that we wanted to adapt using the tool. So the Build a Wall Marble Run is an activity that students can do with recycled paper to design tunnels for a marble or a little ball to travel from start to finish. And that could underlie, it's a way to talk about different science concepts such as gravity, momentum, friction, energy transfer, etc. So after introducing them to this activity, and we gave them the tool, and we asked them to try to adapt it by looking at some of the questions and seeing what questions resonated with them to try to think about different interpretations or different extensions that they could make to this existing STEM activity. So those are some of the adaptations. They discussed how their construction, the marble, that marble wall run, stands as a metaphor of anxiety and supporting future students who suffer from anxiety to develop strategies that echo the movement of the marble. Students were inspired by the spiraling downward movements of the marble, noticing how this was reminiscent of the ways our thoughts can spiral and gain speed towards anxiety. Their idea was to couple STEM techniques of slowing down the marble with tools to change their ways of thinking and to feel more empowered to manage their anxiety. Pre-service teachers also mentioned that this activity afforded ways for students to express their different identities and cultures by bringing objects from home to build and decorate the marble wall run, and of course to use recyclable materials as a stepping stone to connect with also cultural ways of honoring materials by allowing them many lives and iterations. Some other adaptations included addressing sustainability through hydroelectric dams, and that way to foster the relationship with nature by seeing that also modeling waterfalls that are represented through this, the marble run. And they also talked about connecting with their bodies when they think about how their food moves through the digestive tract, for example. So some anecdotal evidence that we gathered from students after they've, took a time to engage with this activity and with the adaptations. Students mostly enjoyed the tool and mentioned how these strategies could be very useful in creating a more diverse space and making STEM more engaging to students who do not typically like math or science activities. Another student mentioned how this tool helped to adapt an exercise to become more diverse and accessible. It helps to foster students' creativity and wonder and their personal connections to the material, and can create more visceral experiences in the classroom. So all of those, again, are anecdotal evidence that we gathered from students. We still need to make, to kind of turn this tool, and this is our hope as we kind of come to conclude this presentation today, is to think about, more systematic applications of wanting to take this tool and turn it into a place where we could test it out in a real context and gather data from students' reactions and the experiences of teachers with this tool. And so another like continuing work with this tool would be to adapt it also to different educational levels, whether it's for the elementary, secondary, post-secondary, and also for different curricula and curricular expectations. We find that this tool works well with STEM, but it can also work well with other disciplines, and you could see also that there's a lot of integration and interdisciplinary work that could go in this with this tool. We would love to think more about adding questions to this tool. So this tool is not necessarily rigid, like it's a very living document that we would like to keep exploring and adapting and improving. For instance, by adding questions to support teachers in approaching the assessment of creative activities. And possibly even we appreciate and value collaboratively working with teachers to also hear from their perspectives about what's valuable and what can be done with their students and the specific context they're located in. So that's why we would love to be in a context where we can co-design with teachers additional questions that support creativity and equity, but also work with teachers on implementing this tool and gathering more formal data about its applications and its possibilities. And even involve students themselves as learners, but also to help us think about how we could redesign the activities with them and to learn from that process. Those are some of the references that I've used today. And to end, I would just like to thank you once again for listening. And please reach out if you're interested in connecting about the tool or exploring how it might work in your own setting. We would love to connect with you and learn and be able to collaborate together. Thank you so much, and have a good day or a good night. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you in future EduBridges events.